Okay, let's get started. Have your attention, please. Please turn on your cell phones and make sure all the important calls are made. I'm going to introduce myself. I'm Phil Bull. I'm the IT director at Pepperdine Law School, and I'm here with my colleague David Dickens. He's our consulting technologist and system architect, and we're here to talk to you about our video distribution system and the genius of David Dickens. Before we get into that, I want you to know a little bit about my background. One time in, I think it was 1990, I showed the library director how to underline a word perfect. That's how I got this job.
How do you underline? It's F8.
all it's trying to be right now is Shift F7, which I think is print. David came on board because he was the only guy we interviewed that wasn't afraid of roaming user profiles in Windows NT.
No, I think I came on board because you fainted in front of the dean for over.
Well, that was before that. Yes. I can't do any more work. I need help. But we have a lot of fun in our shop, and hopefully you guys can pick up on a little of that. What we want to talk about is a video in the School of Law and our unique challenges and hopefully somewhat successful approaches to dealing with distributing video around our building. And I can now advance my slide, and you can read an amazing bit of text. Should I read it out loud? Well, we'll read it into the record later. But what this says is talking about how we approach things at Pepperdine generally at the law school, and that is we can't ever do a flashbang project. We have to work through things, line upon line, precept upon precept. And one of our wordsmiths generated this for us. The most successful technology projects incrementally improve the established pedagogical and business processes of the law school while incorporating substantial future developments of those processes. It's better. Make sure your project makes things better for the people that need to use the facilities, and unveil the more cool stuff later as they buy into what you've done. We've been working on. How many people have special projects? And how many people also have a job to do? So what would you say, about 75% special projects and about 65% work? Or is it the other way around? Or is it 100 and 100? Yes. We've entitled this slide Incrementalism. And working on these things over time, we've been able to have some success in, we get this little project. Oh, well, I can't do that project if I can't get, $17 to run this cable over here. And 17 times 10 times 18 years, you get 2 or 3 cables pulled, and you can start distributing video. But is it sneaky to tell people, wow, we can't really do that if we don't have the TriCaster studio, which is $15,000 a thing, which is roughly a quarter of my budget for hardware. And I didn't say that out loud, I was watching this. Is it sneaky to do that? We needed the product. We needed it for this particular event. I don't know, is it? It's not that sneaky. Well, it kind of it is a little sneaky. But we've been able to build a pretty decent infrastructure, one piece at a time, and the culmination of which is, well, we haven't really culminated, but we have a much better way of delivering services to our user community. Just because we have had a broad range plan, and every time something comes up, we find a way to get something done on that plan. Now, as you can see, we have very little money spent on landscaping in Pepperdine. Let's talk about building budget and background, and we'll do this in reverse order. The background. Pepperdine is, we're a small private school, religiously affiliated in Malibu, California. Usually we say sunny, beautiful Malibu, California. Sun-kissed, ocean-washed, and there's some other thing with it. 13 miles up the coast from Santa Monica. Has anybody ever been there? We've got a couple of people. It's not so bad. We beat Santa Barbara pretty hard. University enrollment's around 8,000, and we have about 700 students at our facility. We have 120,000 square feet. Our building was built in 2 phases. One in 1978. Does anybody remember the 70s? Lots of plasma. Lots of high tech back then. And in 1992 was the second phase. It's not a huge building, but it's very solid. And when I say solid, I mean that. There's a lot of concrete. There's some steel, but mostly concrete. And every project we do, it sort of involves how we're getting around the concrete or through it. These are the things I worry about at night. We have 4 seminar rooms, 7 classrooms, 2 courtrooms, and then we have some other places that are kind of fun to be in. We have our Dean's Conference Room. We have, I think we have 9 study rooms. I'm not sure how many we have actually in business right now. Fewer, because we're always moving things around. 1 computer classroom, and then the odd space that somebody says they want to do something in. And these are all areas that we want to bring video to. And there's a lot of cool things going on with wireless HDMI and these kinds of things. I don't know, how many of you want to rely on wireless for distributing video? Okay, God bless you people. You have more faith than I have. We really want to run wires everywhere. At least I do. And since I'm in charge of that, I think we're running wires everywhere. And who's doing that? Our team, there's 8 of us, depending on how you slice it. And then we work very closely with the University IT group. They have about 100 people, and they run the infrastructure at the university. So we go to them if we want to run wires. We go to them if we want to have a closet open so we can go and look at their routers and switches. And sometimes they let us do that. But we work together pretty well. So that's kind of a little bit on the background of Pepperdine. Budget. Annual funding versus one-time funding. And David actually wrote this, and he said this very nicely. Taking advantage of events, special projects, and sweat equity to drive budget, drive innovation. A lot of times the way we're funded, and I don't know if anybody else is like this, we're funded by surprise. And we're not surprised if we don't get funding. We're surprised if we do. We put in a request, and 5 years later somebody will say, hey, how come we don't have one of these, and these? I'll say, well, if you look at my budget request from every year for the last 5 years, we've kind of outlined that. And we have a donor who's willing to give you $50,000. Hey, what about like ongoing expenses and the support kind of? Well, we have a donor that's willing to give you $50,000 right now. And so we say yes, and then eventually maybe we get a little bit of money to maintain the stuff. Maybe we don't. But that's kind of what I was mentioning earlier. Is we take a very broad view of where we want to go, and we try to structure all of our projects into supporting that broader view. And David calls it hitching a ride. Any fans of the Unveil program? No?
Yes. I'll proudly admit to it.
Want to take a ride? Anyway, he has a great announcer with a great voice. It's not my voice. We have a number of events going on all the time with the law school, and we are able to use those different times to sort of leverage our move forward. Many of you may have heard of the Landis arbitration, where we hosted the hearings between Floyd Landis and the United States Olympic Committee, and that was pretty exciting. We had 6 media trucks, like 60 members of the international press, national, international, in our building, running around trying to get a shot at Floyd Landis. but we had to support them with real-time audio, real-time video in overflow rooms, and camera people, and all kinds of cool stuff like that. And there was a lot of things we needed to have. And I hope that didn't sound too sarcastic, but we needed to have it. I don't know how much equipment we got out of that. We probably got a couple pieces, but mostly what we got was a lot of cable. A lot of cable got run, which is a beautiful thing, stitching our classrooms together. Now remember, our building was built in 1978 and then expanded in 92. Does anybody know what pre-cat wiring is? Is that a nice word for a 25 pair or 50 pair? You're not running Ethernet over that. And we had some Cat 3 and we had some Cat 5, and we had a solid throughput at about 2 megabits. And some beautiful, what's that?
On a good day.
On a good day. I'd go home and use my dial-up and be amazed at the speed I could get. But we got some nice wires out of that deal. Then our London campus now was upgraded, and we have a campus in London, UK, and they got connected to Janet. Does anybody know about Janet? It's kind of like Abilene, only it's in Europe. So they got Janet, and Pepperdine got Internet 2 about the same time. And we're like, well, that's kind of cool. I mean, we need to be able to talk to those guys. Can we get some video conference equipment? Some video conference equipment. We upgraded our wireless network by using the tactics of shame and guilt. Hired a firm to come in and do a survey, and presented that to University IT, who was responsible for that. And just so happened the president's daughter was also attending our law school. And I had a number of students that come up to me and accuse me of throttling the wireless network. We had like 4 access points with 400 concurrent users on a B network. Now, those of you who are technologists know
That's not so good.
that's not so good. Had a guy come up to me and say, you know, I'm a day trader, and that's how I pay for my tuition, and you guys are responsible. But, I was like, dude, I wish I was so organized to throttle your day trading. The sad fact is, you day traders needed to donate more. This is our Minute Hall Appellate Courtroom. We had a build out. We got an $80,000 one-time grant from the university to build out our appellate courtroom, and we used that to kind of leverage us into a whole lot of conduit in some concrete floors. So I don't have any wires in a lot of that conduit, but you know what? I got that conduit, and I'm getting ready to put some wires in it. Our digital signage grant, I kind of mentioned that. Our dean said that he was embarrassed of our facility. It looked like an elementary school because we had poster boards on easels everywhere, and he wanted some modern signage. And by golly, if you know our dean, we were going to go ahead and take care of that for him. and we did. Somebody made the ask. They got $50,000, and we went out. In spite of the university, sometimes they helped us, sometimes they told us not to. It was kind of a little bit confusing. But we went ahead and put these signs up on the wall, and we ended up with a pretty nice solution. And that further leveraged our ability to deliver video. Probably the most significant thing that happened in all of these things was the university went through an ERP replacement process. So our central computing system was going to be replaced. And we ended up with PeopleSoft, which is a big horse. And you need a lot of throughput to make it go. I mean, the thing we had before was amber screen, you know, like 1984 type stuff. And which didn't take much effort at all to push across our Italy network. But we got a major uplift. All of our network drops were converted to Cat 6. All our electronics were replaced. Gigabit switches, new routers, a whole new network topology, and that was kind of nice. But they closed the doors on the TRs. They changed all the locks. None of us could get in. So that was kind of nasty. But at least we've gotten Cat 6 in the building, in most of the rooms, in addition to all the other cable we had pulled. So that's a foundation we were able to leverage. Dave will talk more about that later. I mentioned events. We had Mohammed Yunus, who started the Hermine Bank Microfinance. He won the Nobel Peace Prize for that. He came out to talk. We had 800 people coming to visit our campus for his talk, visit our law school. Our biggest room holds 500 people, packed. So we had overflow issues. Called the cable guys. Got more cable, stitched more rooms together. And we got our TriCaster out of that deal too. And then the last thing, the Constitutional Law Symposium, we had to have another piece of equipment for that one now.
The
Polycom VSX 8000. So we could do a video conference where people could participate in Philadelphia and Malibu in real time, asking questions and all that kind of stuff. That was pretty exciting, and that worked out really well for us. Next thing, building, remembering. Remember the way we were? It was all so simple then, wasn't it? This is our trip from desk jets to Wi-Fi to high definition video conference or video distribution between the rooms. Whenever we would talk about the deplorable state our physical plant was in, invariably the topic would come up. Well, we're going to be refurbing, parts of the building. So if we can just incorporate that into the plan, when we do this big project, all this stuff will be fixed. And does anybody know that Harry Chapin's Cats in the Cradle? It'll be a good time then. Well, I've been at Pepperdine 18 years. We've been going to do a lot of things for a long time. So this is kind of what fuels our incremental approach to get those little holes drilled in the concrete and all that other stuff. One thing I want to point out here, David innocently took this picture not knowing it was a giant sore for me. This is the new auditorium that's been designed, but it's our same old auditorium with the same old chairs, the same old tables, the same old stupid lighting zones, and a really hideous rear projected display. Well, there's dream clash at times, so we just hope we can stay engaged in that. Our building reality is we actually have a very solid, and I said solid before, we have a very solid building. We now have a pretty decent infrastructure, and we're ready for the next influx of events to fuel our next series of incremental positive changes. And one of those is, did I miss one? Needs. We want to be able to give people video conferencing access in every room. We're really close to that. We want to be able to do recording like they have here, the cam system. We don't have that. We have guys that walk in the cameras. And event broadcasting, we can do it on an ad hoc basis. You give us notice. We can do it. We want to automate it. We want to get to that point. We have a solid platform that we've built over the years, and we're making progress. This is David.
That's me.
Can I give you David?
Oh, that would be helpful. Because you'll have no idea what. Wow. Phil has to worry about a whole lot of things that I don't worry very much about. And I can tell you that when I first started doing IT, even before coming to the law school, when I was working at the School of Business there at Pepperdine, I always had a lot of big plans. And sometimes my big plans were, please give me access to 50 megabytes of space on a server somewhere so that I don't have to use LapLink to mirror You guys know what LapLink is. Using cable through your parallel port, your printer port.
So that's some of those cables, by the way.
I'm sure you could sell those to a collector. Anyway, the point is, sometimes it was very simple. The plan was very simple. I needed to get some space on a server so I could copy my hard drives around and keep my lab going without having to do it one at a time with LapLink cable. Other times, I thought I really knew so many things better than everybody else, and I had this, maybe I did, I don't know, at the time, given this constraints and information. But I'd come up with these grand plans, and I would try to take them to somebody, and I'd be told, no, you can't have a single copy of software, antivirus software for your student workstation to prevent the entire lab from becoming infected because it costs too much money. But that was a long time ago, and I didn't know what I didn't know. And what I didn't know was that no one can really grasp, I think in academia in general, with a couple of exceptions maybe, can really grasp a big scheme without doing something like what Phil was talking about. We'll put that off until the whole building gets done, which will never ever happen. So what we try to do is take a bunch of these things and make them work well together in pieces and parts. And I want to talk about some of those pieces and parts. Phil already mentioned some of the things I'm going to talk about. So I'm going to go back here.
Yes, they're out of order, Dave.
Well, thank you. All right, here we go. Back in order now. All right. So the first section of things was done with some Geffen boxes, duct tape, and baling wire. It was the first initial bits and pieces of putting together something that would hopefully later on be much more than the sum of its parts. Oftentimes, we got money. Maybe it was a lot of money compared to what some of you guys were able to get a hold of, and sometimes maybe it was a lot less. But whatever we could find, we always purposed towards things that are larger and farther out goals. Digital signage was really our first big break in that sense. And this is a picture of our magnificent digital signage closet that hangs on a wall in a storage room that has no air conditioning. But anyway, we do have some very lovely loud fans that no one has to hear behind all of our concrete. When money was available, when money became available, we had to do the most that we possibly could with the least amount of fuss and muss. And I think Phil identified some great, fairly large screens, but they were only 720p. A little compromise on maybe what would have been a higher end machine. We went with a slightly lesser machine. A lot of people, when they go out and do digital signage, they put wireless units, so they have like a computer sitting next to a monitor, maybe hidden behind some sort of compartment, a little jerry-rig or a cabinet is built around it. But we were trying to think farther ahead than that. We didn't want to just put some units around the building that could show a few signs, and we didn't have the ability to do something like rebuild. Again, we keep going back to rebuild the entire building, like here in Camden, the campus here, they're able to enjoy the touch screens all over the place. We couldn't do something like that. But what we did do is recognize that if we pulled cables everywhere first, and that's a lot of what this thing keeps meaning, getting connectivity to different places. If we pulled cables all over the place and drew it back to a central location, we could do something with all that later on. Maybe not what we had originally intended, but maybe something else. Something more than we had originally intended. And so we found a way to afford a few cable pulls in there and punch a few holes in concrete and draw it back to the central system. That little bit of change, moving from what is a very typical thing, from a unit sitting there on the wall, wirelessly connected to the net or whatever like that to deliver some content, which is popular and understandable, to pulling things back to the central closet, utterly changes the architecture of what we're working on. And I think it results in our ability to be able to use these signs in more ways than we originally intended. Phil talked about getting the TriCaster when Mohammed Yunus came to speak. It was quite obvious to everybody that one of the things we kind of lacked in the Landis situation was really the ability to deliver more of this video effectively in more ways than simply dumping into a feed for the press. We need to be able to move it around the building, and we need to be able to potentially move it out into our own production facilities. We have our own, the undergrad has their own television station. But we couldn't tell everybody about this magnificent plan. What we did tell them though is that we really need this to deliver the video, at least to those external classrooms. And all of a sudden, when this came along, all those cables to our digital signs made a whole lot more sense. Because now I was able to go one place in the closet, take one video feed, and throw it out to all the computers. and it wasn't a stream. And I've tried streaming a live event. You get blips and clicks and bad video quality, even within your own building you're working in. And this was live streaming the full HDMI feed from this box out to all the digital signs and in the classrooms that could handle it at the time. But this requires a great deal of hoo-ha. And hoo-ha that was assembled at the back of the classroom was terribly impressive. This large array of cables and connectors and transfers, and because I got BNC here, but I need DVI there, and I got stereo out here, and I got a phone plug there, and I have to make all this stuff work together. And at first, it became this big, massive mess, but the mess served its own purpose too. I'll talk about that. Installations like the Minimalism courtroom installation, where we were able to take advantage of a lot of this and put it together all at once in one place. We've got cameras in here. Sometimes the video quality could be better, but because it's all integrated into one box in this place, I can utilize these cameras in this facility, in this unit, with the video conferencing stuff, and we can have our Strauss Institute of Dispute Resolution hold a conference with people in China. And I've got a venue for that. You know, I've got the infrastructure in place here. But because I'm connected everywhere, because we keep pulling cable, every time we pull one cable, we ask why not pull two, because the labor costs more than the cable after all, and we really need this over here, so why not just pull two cables instead of one, or three, or four in cases. You know, when someone's got the money for it, we can actually deliver this anywhere. We had to make some choices, and you know, I was one of those people, and I fully appreciate my own mistake at this point. Because I'm of the mind that, because I became of the mind because I was so disappointed so often that I couldn't get the funding for the things I wanted to do and the cool grand plans, I often went the other direction and completely devolved and said, well, I could use Skype for free. I can have a professor with Skype here and a student with Skype there, and we can get by. We'll figure out a way with a camera and this and whatever. But taking that attitude, taking that, well, I sort of like throw my hands up the whole thing, and going sort of with a minimalist approach, escapes the reality that what the Polycom offers for me, if I can figure out a way to justify the expense of going, and at least going this far along the path, is suddenly I have the ability to manipulate this video conference conversation any which way I want. As I mentioned before, I couldn't have taken this immense amount of infrastructure in that admitted hall courtroom and moved it anywhere with Skype. It was not, we weren't going to talk to anyone in China and hold a conference with Skype. We were not going to be able to split the audio and manage in case of feedback loops, because they're the video and they're showing the video and they're showing our sound on their speakers, but their mics are picking up our sound, the noise cancellation, all that stuff. That ain't going to happen with Skype. I have to have something more there to do that. So if I didn't have a little bit more than nothing, so to speak, I couldn't ever integrate it with everything else that's going on. So I can't have everything, I can't have nothing. But if I can get little bits and pieces, I can get a Polycom in here, I can get some cameras over there. We got some nice high quality cameras from a project that somebody else paid for, but it found its way into our tutelage, our care and concern. Volante it kind of came out of nowhere for me. I think Phil had been thinking about this for a while, but it really surprised me. I wasn't ready for this, but I knew I needed something like it, but I didn't know what it was until I saw it, or until Phil told me about it. SBSI is a wonderful little company working on delivering digital video over networks. Here we've got all these bits and pieces just waiting. We've got cable, we've got sources, we've got destinations, we've got events and justifications for doing cool stuff, but we need something to make it all talk. And what these guys do is they can take, very simply, DVI with stereo sound and push it all over the place. They can push multiple streams at the same time, they can broadcast to multiple destinations. They do this all smartly. That is, these units have their own little hub in the back of them. You can connect them together. string 3 or 4 of them together. You can string them over a network. The only problem really with them for our situation is they do everything via broadcast. Now, I don't know just what the IP broadcast, but I don't know what the geek level of everybody sort of in here is, but that kind of configuration takes a lot of planning. It goes back to the big space where we have to have this grand plan and involve a central IT and coming in and how we're going to reconfigure all of our routers to handle broadcast mode and IP. And that's the kind of thing that takes networks down. And it doesn't just take your local network down. It can cause the whole university to go down if it's not configured properly or mismanaged in some way. So, rather than doing that, since we had all this cable and since we had all this material available in the walls, we were able to do something a little more like this, which is our own private video network. Suddenly, ta-da, suddenly something comes into being that never could have existed with all the assemblable parts. I suddenly have a place for my video conferencing unit and my phone conference unit and my projectors in the classrooms, at least those that accept DVI. We're going to deal with those, piece by piece basis to get them up to the DVI standard, but we have cable all over the place, and all I have to do is go into my closet and say, okay, well, here's the cable that's going in, and it's plugged into our network. I'm going to unplug it, and now I'm going to plug it into this new network. And now I'm connected everywhere to everything, all over Twisted Pair, and I can push video around it. As long as I can get to DVI as a platform in terms of my video standard and at a 720p, which is the standard for the most of the screens that we have available, and is also compatible with our projector units. And as long as I can get the stereo sound, I'm good. I'm golden anywhere I want to be, anytime I want to be. And I can arrange. Now, right now, it's still ad hoc. There's still bits and pieces of here that aren't here. This is a wonderful automated system here at Rutgers where they could just say, okay, at this time, record this classroom from here to here. But we don't have cameras yet in every classroom. But I'm not done yet. And Phil's not done yet. And all these other pieces have to come together to make this go on. But right now, what we've got is a few minor clicks. It was like a couple hours worth of work, really, to take connections that were going from the main university network to go into this video network and deliver video network all around the building. This is not the only thing we worked on. There's other things I'm trying to find a place for. People talk about distance learning ever since I got to CALI. It seems like there's always been this, like, well, will we, won't we? Is it real good pedagogy? Is it not? Is it what? I'm not a faculty member, but I do know that they would very much like to have externships where people are outside of state be able to get credit for, because after all, that's cash money. And so we were able to take advantage of the fact that Illuminate, which was really kind of an underutilized minor thing that the university had invested in, we were able to take advantage of that and start doing distance learning, sort of, but enough to justify those things. We've got video going in and out, via Illuminate. And how can I hook this up to everything else? I haven't figured it out yet, but I'm going to figure it out, because it's one more piece of the puzzle that I can add to the whole picture. But yeah, we had a pretty successful couple of classes, and I hope we're able to do more like that. I don't know that it's ever going to take over the rest of what we do, but I do know some people down at the Strauss Institute that would like to take advantage of doing the work that they do and the teaching they do. Via online resources. It's very important to me. Maybe too important to me. It's very important to me to impress people with whatever we're doing. I don't really know how that always comes out and whether I'm always capable of doing it, but my interest is in making sure that when we have the opportunity to have a Supreme Court Justice come and talk, that when the provost is there or the university president is there, he sees something cool while that Supreme Court Justice is in the building. That when we have the head of, when we have our CIO in the building, and we're doing a video conference to bring in an expert on some book or that's being published or something like that, that it looks good. In fact, it looks great. And that requires a lot of additional work beforehand to make sure what appears on the front is reflective of what the technology is capable of and what you're capable of and your group is capable of. You know, Tom Bruce's talk this morning was just fantastic. And he talked about having to talk direct to one another, not overpromise or underperform and these sorts of things. What we did in these instances had to perform, and where we couldn't necessarily do it perfectly, we brought in people. So, you know, we have great resources, we have great people, I love my colleagues, but we've got a guy named Jim Call, who's got a great production company, can bring in stage lights and proper camera equipment and a crew, and they can come in for a special event, as I'm sure you guys do when you have a big event. You guys have contractors and stuff you work with. You bring those in for the stuff that you know is going to be heavy lifting you can't handle, so that the work that you're putting in will shine. And I think that we've been able to do that. I think we've been able to impress people in all sorts of different ways. We put together something called the Brock Conference Room, because Brock donated money to the school. Also known as the Republican Room. I don't know if you can actually make out all the various Republican presidents and memorabilia from various electoral campaigns. But the thing is, this is a small room, and it's done up very specially for a donor. You guys all have some room someplace, somewhere, I'm sure, or someplace that you could make half the room look nice. I don't know. But you create an environment, you create a way, a means of impressing people. We're taking advantage of something that somebody else has already done, putting together this fine room. So we stuck at the other end a video conferencing unit, a nice big plasma screen hanging off the wall. Got our telephone conference backup sitting over there in the corner of myself. I suppose caught on camera taking a picture of myself in the room. We did that big upgrade. We didn't have to do it. The university did it to our London campus. Now, we've got a great venue that we took advantage of because somebody else made a fancy room. We just put in the stuff. Bill went in with tools and help from another colleague of mine, Matt Court. Went in there and just built it onto the wall. Bought cheaply, inexpensively, bit by bit, all the pieces. Put this together, and now we've got a great place to bring in people who would love to interview our students, even though they're in London, and students who would love to get interviewed, even though they've taken advantage of our international program. I actually think that this is an improvement in some ways for the students' behalf than necessarily being interviewed just simply in person. It's a well-dressed environment. I think the television, once they get used to it, I think actually adds an air of I don't know what television adds to everybody. It does add something to the presentation. I think it's an impressive thing. It's a way to impress these people who come on campus and want to interviews.
You forgot the before picture, David. The little corner study room that had some yellow file cabinets and walls.
But it had potential. It had potential. And sometimes that, sometimes being impressive, or doing things to impress people means doing things that I don't find very natural. Cleaning up after myself in a way that's image conscious. Taking the large back row full of cables and connectors and converters and turning it into a box. Phil walked into my office one day and said, "Hey, I got this gig box. Could you use it?" And I was able to take this big, huge mess that I've been dealing with and having to reassemble, and a little thing. Now I'm in the back of the room with my little box. Suddenly it looks all mysterious and wonderful that all sorts of magical things happen, as opposed to the crazy man in the back of the room with his spaghetti all over the place that if anyone touches, Mom and Eunice will not be on any of the screens in the building. Being image conscious and that sort of thing. So this is, the plan. What is the plan? Sometimes the plan changes. Sometimes the plan seems very clear to me. And sometimes it seems clear to Phil. And sometimes we talk. And so it's clear to both of us. But I want to admit that the plan is to have a great plan, is to be making a great plan all the time, to have to be working on that big idea, to be making a mistake, to here or there, to build together something that's going to have what they call emergent features, emergent systems, emergent ways of doing things. A little bit here, a little extra wiring there, taking advantage of an event to get a piece of equipment to add to the arsenal. All these bits and pieces, hopefully to come together to start doing crazy things. How do I get illuminated in here to transmit video? What am I going to use it for? I don't know. I want to try to figure out a way that I want to leverage that. If we're going to do distance education, we're going to do it right. We're going to impress somebody with it. So what are we going to do? And I'll sit and I'll think about that. And I couldn't do that if I didn't have all these bits and pieces that have been laid down over the years, because we're not, the building's going to get rebuilt when? It'll probably surprise us too. That'll be a surprise. They'll come in one day and they'll be telling us, oh yeah, we're doing a bunch of construction on the 3rd floor. Can you move all the faculty secretary? No, that happened.
That was Tuesday.
That was Tuesday. We have people coming doing construction. And you're going to get surprised by those things. But if you have, I think, and I guess this is almost sort of like I'm sharing, but I'm also sort of preaching a little bit here. If you keep your head up and watch for opportunities, for how you can slowly get the pieces to do something cool, when someone steps in either with a problem for you or with an opportunity you're going to take advantage of. And I wouldn't have done this before. That wasn't my mode. My mode was the crazy genius in the back room who's just going to hide away for 6 months and then pop out with something magical if he just had enough money or time or coding experience or this cool module or whatever like that. And as if something was supposed to be birthed fully grown from my head, like Athena. It's not going to work that way. Maybe some of you guys have very different experiences than us, but I suspect that some of you even have harder times than we've had at getting a hold of some of the individual pieces. And for some people, it may just be a few boxes that don't need to go to surplus. Well, you're going to hold on to them because they're useful for something. Maybe we'll need those. And you stack those away someplace and you'll be ready for the next opportunity to be able to use them for something. So for us, in terms of video, I'm trying to get all DVI all the time. I really want to be able to make sure that this platform that I've got is always going to be useful for me, that I can capitalize on the infrastructure that's been put in place. We want to make sure that the video that we're pushing everywhere has beautiful places to be. So we buy pipe and drape to cover up things we don't want people to see. And we worry about what the camera can see. And we worry about how good our video guy is. Because Scott Wuckel has been doing some great work editing video for us, and we want to give him a good product to work with and a good venue to work with when he's doing his recording. And so we work on that. We work on photo backdrops and things like that, a lot of which don't cost that much money and not necessarily take that much time. But every piece of it adds to the bit. And we collaborate with people. We do go out there and try to coordinate what we're trying to do with what they're trying to do. We try to find a place where their needs and our hopefully future plans come together. And that requires planning. That requires Phil and his excellent work in terms of managing the budget and the direction and understanding the pulse of where the deans are at and where they're not, and what we can get and what we can't, and what the university's doing, and his relationship with the CIO. And that's, that all has to be there. It also means that all of us, as part of the department, have to become the experts and have that attention to detail that's not famous for some IT people to have, and not natural necessarily. It wasn't necessarily natural for me. Another confession, I was chastised when I first applied for my job because I filled out a resume and inconsistently used periods and not periods. And at the end of various lines in my resume because some were sentences and some weren't and didn't need periods. But really, you should do all of one or the other. But the point is,
Somehow he was hired.
somehow, well, there was the fainting that filled it, I think. It was partially inspiring. But I mean, the thing of it is, as an IT person who was a creative type, who works in creative bursts of energy, I get an incalculable amount of work done in 2 days. And then I work slowly on like 3 or 4 projects, it seems like, for a month without no visible progress because there's a creative process going on and it doesn't, as I said, spring forth fully grown. Having the planning and having the people being committed to it will really help. And testing that stuff, we need to develop, even still, our own process of testing. We can't be testing a video delivery system for the first time in front of a Supreme Court justice. Or the provost of the university, or the dean. We need to be doing all those things ahead of time, and we need to continue to work on that and make sure that our talents and our skills in our department are redundant, have redundancy. There is also the risk, and we will make mistakes. This is a very unfortunate picture. Phil reminded me just how unfortunate. This terminal is temporarily unavailable. We apologize for any inconvenience. You can see it's on all the terminals.
There's only 3.
There's 6. It's the other side. Sorry. You just can't see the picture. Anyway, we're innovating. We're trying. And when you innovate and try, you will have problems. And this worked really well until it stopped. You have to be willing to take those risks because sometimes failures are instructive. You just don't have you don't want the learning process to be terribly visible to everybody else, I guess. Which this is a little more visible than I like. But be willing to take the risk. We have been. And I think it's been worth it. So that's kind of the spiel on kind of what we've been doing and what we did and kind of how we did it and why we did it and the way we did it. I don't know if there's any questions or anything like that. Maybe I sort of just talk a lot and then see if people find anything interesting. Long day, we're ready for some heat. Ready for the rain.
Weather.com.
Is it still raining outside? It's supposed to be.
You got one in the back.
When you were talking about the Skype versus Polycom debate or question or process or decision, the issue we've been facing really is faculty come in saying, oh, I've been using Skype to talk to my relatives in Europe for years. Why can't we just use that for a faculty conference or a faculty meeting, have a couple people phone in? And we try to explain to them kind of the logistics and the quality that you talking to your brother in Germany is one thing. You talking to a room full of people here is something else entirely. It's getting the information back and forth. So we have faculty who kind of come up with their own solutions. Did you run into that issue at all, or and if so, how did you kind of work away and convince them that your way was the right way?
Depends upon the faculty member. We have some faculty members that are rational. We have some others, and I say this. I'm trying to be fair, actually. That are being rational, but with a limited set of facts. And I try to put myself in their position. I mean, part of my experience has been that I don't know what I'm talking about. I have to confront that. I have to confront the fact that when I was looking at Skype and Polycom, I was having the same sort of thoughts that they were having. And how did I come to some other place than that? How do I take what I know was originally an ignorance on my part and say, okay, well, yeah, I felt that way too. When I first thought about how we were going to get by here, because we're an academic institution, we don't have a lot of money, and I was trying to get by in this one circumstance, and it failed. It didn't do what we needed it to do. It wasn't capable of doing X, Y, and Z. It didn't provide this. It wasn't integrated with that. It wasn't available here. It's what, you know, these sorts of personal experiences that take the faculty. I personally think if you have someone with ill will, I don't know what to do for you. But I mean, if you've got someone there who just doesn't have the information, they're being rational with not enough data. You have to get them the data, and you have to show them the back of the Polycom unit and say, look what we can do with this that we can't do. You have to have a big screen TV that the Polycom is hooked up to, and show them the lovely room already set up. The Dean's Conference Room, which is a lovely big room, a big table with a big screen TV at the end. You have to say, look at how nice this looks. You have to show them the alternative instead of trying to finagle with them about something that, because they're making a good choice. They're making a good decision based on the limited information they have. So, you know, I try as much as I can, even though I may not say it out loud, I try to remember that I don't know what I'm talking about or didn't know at the time what I was talking about either. And I had to learn these things too. And I try to put them in that spot and give them that credit that they're going to be of goodwill and cooperate when they realize the details. Maybe that's not possible. And if it's not possible with somebody, well, somebody somewhere down the line has to tell somebody no. And there's important enough people who are capable of doing that. I haven't had to be one of those people. Sometimes Phil has to be one of those people. Sometimes the dean has to be one of those people. And sometimes people are not happy with you in the end. But you hope that you give them enough good service. You know, so you're hoping not to have that middle problem that Tom was talking about again this morning. These people who never really interact with you all that much. And they just want the television to work. They come to you, they just want Skype to work and just to use that. If you go out there and a little more proactively and make sure you've attached to these people ahead of time and established a relationship with them that's more than just email, maybe you got a better shot at that than the people you're always dealing with, which are your other ends of the spectrum. Anybody else? All right. Thank you so much.
Well, you could have like, just the list of journals, and then it comes up on, okay. And then it'll cost this much money, and if you would like me to do it, you can. Well, at least our dean said, if I want, here's the money. So, well, that's what I'm saying. Like, you know, no problem. You want for it? It's $100,000. No problem.
how they say about it.
Well, you know what we got
And the logistics of doing that being, two different things.
Yeah, I know.
You try to deal with like very different needs. Forget about the technology for a second. Just managing a discussion with 8 different separate silos. It's one thing to say, okay, two teachers are small, and they know each other, they like each other's stuff. They're going to team the courses. They're both going to be present. They're both going to be fielding questions from the classroom. The classrooms we see is each other. But only one person will teach one at a time, and we'll have a sufficient number of people between the two locations to generate a discussion that's worthy of the class and not canceling the class. So it's like keeping the class alive for a reason that will work. But as soon as you have and it sounds like you're here, then people start inventing weird systems of holding their bread cards to answer a question and stop the individual involved, one of the teachers involved, the professor's going, isn't on the page with everybody else exactly what they're supposed to be covering and not covering. A lot of times it felt like really good phrase. I like yeah, there's some video side of things. He had a really great phrase. They felt like they really felt like they were observers of someone else's catastrophe. I mean, it was like they weren't even participating in a catastrophe. Much less was it not a catastrophe. And it wasn't. We regret doing it. I don't think our professional regrets doing it. It was a learning experience. But it's a learning experience that's taught me that we're going to have to think about this before we go.
They're starting to
and Yale, they got some expertise, they got a lot of money, but not awful for to be satisfied with LSC's stuff or doing interviews. I do my own. And basically, they have a certain team too. We're doing all your interviews, they else I got the share stuff. It's just very good.
Unless you get traditional API to your coax.
Ben, are you on the faculty? I know I'm going to tell you. Oh, so you work with my former colleague, Morgan. We get up and see
Just give her the drill and lighters. But we don't do anything.
And I put my foot on it and never went there because it's so many things like with this stuff later on. I'd rather have my foot on it if I'm dependent upon LSC or Yale or anybody else. No offense to anybody in particular. I feel like I'm everybody can't do that.
Every vendor we had has done that. We did our latest uplift and replaced all of the Cat 3, Cat 5, Cat 5 kids with Cat 6. Those guys didn't do anything about it. They just fixed everything.
Cool if quick production. You can have losing a lot of brand video. Essentially, but that's essentially nothing. It is.
Well, yeah, they were just trying to see, I'm sure.
But if it was easier to say, I can't do it like that, right? I can't. We'll see that.
I go up there 5 years later, and so.
Using the extra transceivers down talking courses. It's not out there.
This is awesome. You want this? There are downsides.
We know this is going to be annoying.
And I've been working with them. I had the guys come out.
How are we like all?
So you could build a
hair on scale.
No, you could upgrade, but you could tune your video up. The hard part is trying to back down. It's cheap to convert, but to go back down is a pain in the butt. So, for example, I got two really nice, very expensive projectors that only take VGA, and I'm all AVI now, so I got to build fast what to do. And those projectors are already integrated into control panels and stuff. that already have RS-232 commands and stuff already all done. So if I go get a new projector, it's a lot of fluid. In fact, it's so much. The likelihood is,
And maybe the plan included excluding, but at least they have.
with DVI, cheap one with DVI for your video. Just to look good. And it sounds dumb, but you realize I'm trying to build a whole system.
Say OIT.
And I'm trying to make it all work. And the only way to do that is to maybe do something that seems stupid.
And then no one else was there saying,
Hey, and it's small. You know, because it has to fit together with everything else and so on. And these guys don't have some.
But it looks like we're gonna stop. I had a meeting this morning.
I had the guy out. Just the whole guys.
Because all the good sound planning.
And I didn't bring my people to my business plan. I was like, you guys have no idea. You give a platform, all the guys that bring video or broadcast network. Let me show you what I can do with that. You can see what I've been doing with that. Really? Because I can take video from here, over there, and this. They sell DVR too. So you can do it. But if you want to do some kind of recording stuff,
Telephone lines.
How many people are there in your IT for support?
that's a very person.
You law schools.
Depending
Well,
on how you cut it.
right, but mainly I'm concerned about the So all of them.
Yeah, we're just 21 or something last time I looked.
All my kids.
It's not that we keep count.
I don't know. Susan might, you know Susan? Yeah, she just keeps on the
We've got a guy.
I'm the head of the library.
Especially with our
Just lost it along.
my overhead projector isn't turning on.
You know, we got the.
I mean, do you have enough video producer, or is he like your head of classroom technology?
Ours already happens, I don't know what.
Unfortunately,
See, the only thing about it is, like, the reason why we don't say, you know,
If you were like, almost sounded like you're of counsel to. Okay, that's what I'm saying. Maybe you've gone out on your own.
in fact, I actually had to fight over that word because of the all the collection of crimes.
The other thing I think about is I'm a programmer and you know,
Strategy for how you consultants actually a bad and they actually realize and not to take it.
Well, when we did fire, the first thing that we did, cut all the chickens.
Let's get rid of all the consultants. I first got there, I was the lab guy, and then I became a server guy, and then I became a server control guy, and then I became. Now I'm doing pedagogy. Now I'm doing innovation. I'm like around there. But I'm a skill I don't by leveraging my personality with their relationship with professors and they're in there so long. You know, to start to develop other ideas and other things.
yeah, I like fun.
They're nice people.
We have one for classes and one for Westlaw. We used to, we had dedicated labs for them. Those were
They
good.
attempt to try to get dangerous.
We recently built when I say built, a big reception desk on the garage.
Actually, we did one of our professors who's known amongst faculty that I respect. She's known for being a very material, highly thought through.
But, you know, it took some time to build these things.
I'm thinking
But,
about I talked to her, she's really excited.
and it's smart card. It's, the idea is like a Mac Genius
And I'm
card.
going to talk that process, and I'm going to share that.
One more time, here's one of the chaps.
I'm not going to share it.
You know, to make phone calls to us for, you know,
I'm going to talk to them.
second or third level.
We're talking about how to develop PowerPoint for
But it's not staff, it's about direct call.
And what I'm going to do is
Old style.
I'm going to say, now you know when you first sit down and work on your syllabus, you're going through these things, right?
But it's not heavy,
Just modeling the good behavior. I would basically use her good behavior, use her good hardware she's already done. Not have to defend
somebody got creative
credentials on technology.
You can put whatever you want
But
on the
use the
face.
technology as a back end.
It's just like an old style, single line hotel phone.
That's the kind of.
They're big and heavy.